Today I'm going to be talking about information architecture, or IA. So I'll start off with this cool quote that I really like and really stuck with me when I first got into UX. A really famous UX designer, Jared Spool, once said, "Good design, when it's done well, becomes invisible. It's only when it's done poorly that we notice it." So the same applies for information architecture. When it's all in order, it becomes invisible. So what is IA in the broad sense? It's the organising, the structuring, and the labelling of content in an effective way. So if you think about, you're going to buy a book, your new book, you know the author, you know what you want. There's 2 bookstores on the street. One bookstore looks like a bomb exploded in it. There is no employees to be found. The books are everywhere. You know, you've got a dictionary next to the sci-fi. You've got a children's books next to non-fiction. It's all over the place, so you don't think that you're going to be able to find what you're looking for. The bookstore on the other side of the street, it's well organised. You walk in, there are clear labels of fiction, non-fiction, crime novels, children's books. You know exactly where to go, almost instinctively. Oh, testing. Don't know what's happened there. Has my mic run out? Oh, what's happened there? Thanks. I'll try and.
Which one is it? Who did set it up? Might be the best one.
I don't know. Maybe here we go. I'll try and do no microphone for a while. Can you guys hear me okay? Cool. Yes, so you go into the bookstore where it's all organised, you know exactly where to go, and that is a classic example of really good IA in the real world. So the same thing applies for a website. The goal of IA is to help users complete the task that they're looking to do, and as website owners or marketing teams yourself, basically, to create a really effective IA, you need to understand how pieces of information fit together to create the big picture and understand how each item relates to each other. So as I said before, it's about organising, so grouping, structuring, organising the groups, and then labelling, making sure that every page title makes sense to the layman. Cool. So to continue on with that, the purpose of IA, it's really critical to help users understand where they are on the site, what they've found, what page they're on, what's around, what are the other pages that they might be close to, where to go from here, is there a next button, can they go to the menu, and what to expect. Cool. So why is information architecture so important? So as consumers, thanks, working. Cool, thanks. Test, cool. Yes, so why is IA so important? So we're so accustomed to finding information very quickly, very easily. You know, when we go to the supermarket, we can see the veggies in one area, meat in another area. I know exactly where the chocolate aisle is. I'll go straight there. If they move that on me, I wouldn't be happy. So it's generally the result of a lot of research, a lot of testing, a lot of agonizing. It's generally no coincidence that it's set up like this. So basically, what happens if we don't have a good IA? What's the consequence of that? Most people give up within a few seconds and move on. If they can't find what they're looking for, they're not going to spend hours going through every area of your site. They're going to move on. So that's why it's really critical. So why good IA is good for business. So one of the key complaints that I'm sure you'll get on a government website is, I can't find what I'm looking for. You might get phone calls, you might get other staff internally, but it can become a real issue. So why investing in your IA is a good idea? obviously cost saving in terms of monetary value could be in a literal sense. It can help people purchase tickets to an event, or it could help people pay their rates on time, or it could be spending less on your admin staff who don't have to answer the phone as much. You might cut down on costs for advertising certain things on Facebook. If you have it displayed well on your homepage of your website, it really helps. So basically, you're wanting to make sure that when your user is satisfied, they're comfortable and able to perform the task, that it's going to be cost saving for your website. Of course, so reputation. So I'm sure in local government, it's very important to maintain your reputation. So having a good IA will help people feel comfortable, and it will reduce complaints. And then lastly, SEO. So I'm sure most of you have some of an understanding of what SEO means in terms of ranking well on Google. So ensuring that your IA aligns with what people are actually wanting to search for and what Google is recognizing. Having a great IA is imperative to ranking well on Google. So you need to please both, whether that's working out what kind of search terms that people are using in Google, using Google type tools, and then checking your own search bar on your website to see what people are actually searching for, and using terms like that to describe your page titles. Cool, so now that we have an understanding of the what and the why, let's jump into the how. So before you start, so what is the key process for building an effective and sustainable IA? So before you start, there are a couple of tasks that you'll need to think about. So first of all, it's about your organisational goals, your company goals, the city's goals. What's the purpose of the website? Is it to provide information? Is it extremely varied? You really need to note down what those key goals are for the site. What are the key priorities? What departments need more of a priority? What messages do you want to send? So is your council really focusing on sustainability and the environment? That really needs to be thought out and considered when you're building your IA. So don't start without this first step. It's usually a good idea to get everyone involved, get all your key stakeholders involved, make them feel involved so that you don't run into issues later on if you're ruffling other people's feathers who might want their own priorities. So then of course you will define your user goals. So who are the people that are using your website? You might want to create personas, do a bit of user research, create some scenarios, really work out what it is that your users are wanting to do on the website. Yes, so think about their goals, think about the constraints that they might have. You know, you obviously have a really broad audience, so you need to think about your older users. You might have a really low web literacy, or you know, you might think about the devices that they're using. They're using iPads, they're using phones. So that's really important. And then lastly, you might want to analyze some similar sites. So it's not always a good idea to reinvent the wheel. You know, you should look around at other sites, other local councils over East in your local area and see what are the common denominators, what makes it good, what makes it bad. If you know what makes it good, you can work out, okay, everyone's using this same word, let's stick to that. Cool, so then, time to get going. So this is our usual process for making an IA. So whether you're starting from scratch or you've got an existing site, you need to define your content. So you need to grab all the pages that are on your site, whether you want to decide whether you want to cull pages or just gather all your content, figure out what else needs to be included, and decide what to keep and what to cull. go through it all. Then you're going to be grouping and labeling. So we'll get into this a bit more. I'll give you some more tips and tricks, and we'll do the activity soon. But essentially you need to group every single page and then decide on an appropriate label for every single group. Then of course you need to define your navigation. So once you've got those labels for each group, you need to think about the order of those and really define your menu structure. Then of course testing. So if you can, try and do tests with people. We're going to run through some ideas, but you can do tree testing, card sorting, first click testing and user walkthroughs, and we'll talk through some of those today. Cool, so some things to consider when building your IA is thinking about the organisation scheme. So this could be topic-based, like subject matter-based, or it could be task-based, eat, see, do, play. People can get really creative with IA. It can all work as long as you think about your audience and what you're wanting to portray. Could be alphabetical. If you've got a really long list and it's in one menu group, you might want to just put it in alphabetical order. Geographical, obviously location-based, and yeah, oh, this has stopped again. No? Testing. Oh, turning it on. Cool. Cool. So then also you should think about not making your structure too deep or too shallow. So basically you don't want to have too many going across because it will be hard for the user to remember every single label that you've got in the menu structure. On the other hand, if it's too deep, users can get lost in this structure and get buried down in a tier 4 or tier 5 menu. You've got to just try and strike that balance. Cool, and so some other things to consider, obviously the context of the times, COVID is happening right now, maybe that really needs to be prominent. Thinking about your users, if they've had any really specific requests that you've already got, you're getting a lot of complaints about one thing, definitely think about including that, giving it some priority. And then if you already have an existing structure, think about the logic that was already in there behind that. Who built that IA originally? Why did they make those decisions? It's still always good to consider what's been done, especially since most of your users may be already really used to a certain structure, so changing it entirely can cause issues.